Haven't thought about that in forever. But yeah, Nance got me my start at the Titty Club. Guess I've been trying to erase those memories from my mind. Nothing bad ever happened to me, but I saw so many depressing dances. I just never want to think of them again. We bumped into each other at the dance studio I had started to go to. I haven't been down there in so long. I wonder if it's still around. And I say bumped into, but Nance did all the bumping. I was avoiding everyone and just looking for a safe place to practice. She was so pretty back then, before all the enhancements. Poor Nance. I don't know how someone with all her looks had like zero confidence. She latched onto me so fast, I remember she said we were best friends, literally after we just met. She was heading over to the Titty Club after the studio, and I was curious, so I tagged along. Dancing was definitely not her strength. Like I said, she was a bumper. She would go flail on stage for a couple minutes and then go bump around all the tables for the rest of the night. She definitely had admirers, but more for her company than her moves. I think I started dancing there just to show those chicks how to actually dance. I don't know what they thought they were doing, but it was the saddest scene. I would show up there any time of day just to practice with the poles backstage. Try to give the ladies some pointers. They were all so sweet to me. Probably because I wasn't dancing on stage and stealing their livelihood. I know this because once I did start dancing on stage, they all kind of turned on me. And the more success I got, the worse they got backstage. Not all of them. Nance still adored me, but that's just because she was the most successful chick there at the time. And I guess she's just kind of a sweetheart, in a dummy kind of way. I mean, it definitely explains her infatuation with Freak Show. Only a dummy with zero self-worth could worship that fucking psycho. Thank fuck I decided to change my name when I moved to the city. When Nance told me she met a Nate, I almost shit myself. Like, what are the fucking chances? I guess really fucking good. I mean, it's almost like those two were fucking destined for each other. I could have tried to talk her out of it, tell her the whole story, but I didn't think it would have mattered. For starters, she probably wouldn't get it. And second, she would have probably blurted it all back to him, and then he'd be coming for me all over again. And thank fuck I stopped working at the Titty Club as early on as I did, or the fucker would have seen me dancing too. Fuck. Could you imagine? As much shit as I talk about the Titty Club, I do owe it some gratitude for giving me my start. The rest is kind of history from there. Nance kept telling me that the private dances were why she was still in the business. And for once, she was absolutely correct. At least as far as young bloods went. When we get one of the dummies alone in a private room, they basically become our little playthings. Just figure out what their kink was and just lean into that. It's really not complex mathematics. It wasn't long before I had a lineup of dummy regulars. It was almost dangerous to keep working there and having them fight over each other for the next dance. It just made sense to say farewell and go independent. I used all my earnings to lease out the office, which I eventually bought and have been working out of ever since. Never in my wildest dreams did I think I would start doing it or continue doing it. But life is just like that. You make one turn and then another, and another, and after a while, you stop and wonder, is this where I set out when I started? How in the fuck did I end up here? I mean, as someone who was generally, shall we say, skeptical of men during that time, to then have this opportunity to make men obey my every command and get compensated for it, and also practice dancing in the process? Like, what the fuck can I say? Yes, please. I mean, I always knew males were interested in me, but they were mostly just predatory and erratic. I've definitely met many a dummy over the years who fit this profile exactly. They've never got very far with me. Of course, the odd one always slips by, but I've also learned how to deal with them too. I've developed a sixth sense for the monster dummies and have become nearly expert at avoiding them completely. I know how to identify all the endless varieties of horny dummies and figured out how to keep and cooperate with only my favorites. I was just so baffled after my first exposure to the world of horny dummies with expendable and disposable income. Like, who were these fucking dummies? Did they have partners? Families? Why aren't they spending time with them? And if they didn't have partners and families, were they really the type of dummies I wanted to fuck around with? I'm sure they are all great guys and deserve to find love in the world, yada yada, but I just didn't have time for them. I was just drawn to the committed dummies. The ones with wives and families and careers. The ones who had everything to lose. I just trusted them more. Still do. And I didn't want to fuck these dummies. It was all just so sad. I know I could have, and been making way more. Nance must have told me that every fucking time she saw me. Poor Nance. I really hope she stops one day. I don't think, deep down, she really wants to do it. Maybe she's just too much of a dummy, though. Maybe she is just destined to fuck these sad dummies. Poor Nance. I flirted with the idea, just like every dancer has. I mean, you're in a private room. He's offering you as much as you want. All you gotta do is throw it in for a couple pumps, and he's done. And then everybody wins. But it's just so sad. It was sad then when I first consider it, and it's still sad now that I think of it. Sometimes I wonder how all of it would have turned out if I didn't go soul-searching at the sex shop that one restless night. I had started going there already to help fulfill this or that kink of my dummies. But on that fateful night, I came across a strap-on pussy, and my whole world changed. Like, of course, a strap-on. Is there any more perfect use of dead forest than a strap-on pussy? I mean, probably. But the strap-on pussy really changed everything for me. Finally, the one last bit of control I needed over my dummies was achieved. There were some speed bumps, of course. A few dummies must have been experienced in the art of both real and fake, and started questioning the authenticity of my flower. Fair enough. If you don't trust your dancer, then it's time to move on to the next one. What can I say? I can't please everybody. I mean, eventually I invested in better tech, hired a designer. I got really fucking deep into fake pussies for a while. I like to think I helped revolutionize the industry. Still hold a few patents. Pretty good for a high school dropout, right? Those first couple years were fucking nuts. I mean, I was just honing my craft like crazy. So many dummies. My best dummies made it real easy for me. All I had to do was dance. Some of them I didn't even have to touch. One dummy really impacted my whole practice. He wanted to watch me pole dance while he danced on his pole, and he wanted me to make sounds of enjoyment while I did it. Like just saying, "Oh yeah," when I was really getting into the dance. It was the craziest shit. I couldn't believe it. He would mess all over himself just from that. But see, he clued me into something. My voice. I'm like the quietest person I know. I fucking hate talking. I rarely do it. And yet my voice turned out to be my superpower. Isn't that funny? Ha ha, and strange. So I'd dance a bit to get the dummy all riled up. And once I hopped on their lap and shoved them into the strap-on, my voice just took care of the rest. Even the softest and most seasoned dummies stood no match for my No dummy stands a chance against a couple good pumps with well-timed yeses. They always inevitably blow. Though if I'm honest with myself, my personal favorite would still have to be the foot fetish dummies. These dummies are the wackiest of them all, and the best part is, they love nothing more than to buy me shoes. I don't think I've bought a single pair for myself since I started. I am not into touching, of any kind really. But if a foot dummy comes along and wants to hold or suck or fuck my feet, I am all in. I get off just watching them get off on my feet. It's incredible. Who knew such dummies existed? Honestly, I'm getting all watery just thinking about it. But like I said, those first couple years were wild. I was definitely drunk on my new life. I mean, how could I not? Eventually, though, it got a little sad. I really did start to wonder, what is up with these dummies? Why are they giving me so much? Just to hump them with dead forests. I mean, they didn't know I was humping them with dead forests. Or maybe they did, and that was just their kink. Regardless of real or fake, why? Why the fuck were these dummies doing this? I mean, I know I'm the best, but still, if I wasn't around, I'm sure they would just move on to the next Nance. But why? Well, I guess I'm just curious like a dummy alley cat. I picked my favorite dummies, and I followed them around a bit. Had a little peek at their day-to-days. Got to know them pretty well. Pretty normal, boring shit. I was actually kind of disappointed. I guess I didn't know what I was expecting. A few of them had good careers, nice houses, beautiful wives. Just missing a little something. I don't know. I feel like if you're in a relationship with someone, you should want to be intimate with them. Otherwise, why be with them? I mean, I'm no relationship expert, but it seems logical to me. Obviously, there's a whole host of reasons why dummies get stuck in meaningless relationships. But I wanted to know more about my dummies. Isn't that why they were seeking out my expertise? Was it not a cry for help? Who's to say? So I picked one of the wives and followed her around. Beautiful woman, very classy, very reserved, bordering on stiff. She would leave the house every once in a while to pick up groceries or browse in some fancy stores downtown. She seemed kind of sad and lonely and bored. I'm assuming she hadn't climaxed in forever, if ever. Poor girl. My heart broke for her. I couldn't look away. I had to do something. Her dummy had given me so much already. He could have done so many romantic things for her. I felt bad. Was she just a dummy too? It really ate at me. I had to do something. I couldn't keep seeing her dummy unless I did something for her. So I told a little white lie. Well, maybe a few. Nothing crazy. Maybe a little crazy. I was crazy. I didn't know what else to do. I knew the firm her dummy worked at and just made up this stupid little story that my husband just started working there and that I was coming over with wine and snacks to introduce myself and make a new friend in the new city. I wore this sexy outfit I saw her try on at her favorite store. I even took off my shades, which I hadn't done since I moved to the city. I was full on committed. And she totally bought it. She let me in and toured me around as we drank wine. All I did was pump her tires the whole time. Oh, you look so beautiful. Tell me all your secrets. Oh, this wallpaper is perfect. Oh, this couch is incredible. Once we made it through the first bottle, I started to get a little naughty. I asked her about her dummy and their sex life. And I was fucking right. I knew it. Oh, did that feel good. I could have just left right then. But I had anticipated her answer. I reached back in my bag and pulled out all this stuff from the sex shop. She almost shit. I poured us another glass, and then I got real naughty. I told her me and my husband had a lull in the bedroom recently, and I decided to make a copy of his for myself. He loved that I was taking an interest, so that helped spice things up as well. But also, if I was ever longing for one of those real passionate sessions like we had when we first met, I would pour myself a glass of wine, grab my copy of his, close my eyes, and let him take me in my dreams. Well, she nearly watered all over her incredible couch. And me too. She covered her mouth instinctually with her hand, and when she brought it down, she had the cutest little smile on her face. I could tell by her eyes the naughty wheels were spinning. The goddess was awakening. She took off her sweater, she was so flushed. I just kept on how nice she had been and how naughty I was to barge in on her without asking first. She was totally cool with everything. She said she had a great time. I told her my husband thought I was out somewhere else, and he would end me if he found out that I was there, talking like that, and that we should keep this our dirty little secret. And she loved it. She made this sexy little smile I hadn't seen her make yet and laughed so mischievously it was erotic. That day is so much more vivid in my mind than any dummy I ever met. It really was another turning point. She started planning little get-togethers with her friends, and I started hanging with them, and then their friends. I was the naughty girlfriend everyone wanted and no one knew they needed. I mean, I've really had a great run. But like, not a normal run. It can be a real bummer not being normal sometimes. Especially if you are spending time with all these normal people. So yeah, I don't know how to explain it. It was a bummer day. Wrong side of the bed. They had been happening more and more often. The sights and smells of the city just kind of disgusted me. It was suffocating. I needed to breathe. I needed out. I needed to see my dummy Alan. So, I hopped on the train. Tony mentioned Rita was looking after his food, so I was expecting a sickly Alan when I got here. I called out for him outside for a while. Thought maybe he was already gone, and I was just calling out to nothing. No end to the morbid day. Figured Rita would have probably said something if Alan was gone. It was kind of chilly outside, and I hadn't even checked in the basement yet. I got down there, and there he was. He greeted me with a hiss. I called his name out, and he hissed again. Hey, dummy, what did I say about that breath? He looked rough. Patches of hair missing. As I approached, he waddled away, like he had a limp. I watched him head back to his bed in the corner. He sat there and moaned, like a fucking demon. I said his name again, and he hissed again. His bowls were full. I tried to get closer to him, but his moan got louder. I started to cry and just sat on the couch. We stared at each other for a while. Bummer day. Enough with the breath, dummy. I kind of just bawled there for a while. I knew it was up. I said, "End of the road, Alan?" He moaned. I nodded my head. "You had a good run. I guess I'd be pretty upset too if I never got out of this bummer town." He moaned again. I cried and laughed a little bit. "You didn't miss much. It's a bummer everywhere. One big fucking bummer. Where are you headed next?" He moaned. Yeah. Oblivion. Sounds kind of nice." He moaned. I cried. Then I remembered one of my girls had recently given me a little jar of catnip. My mood improved. I dug around in my bag and found it. I got up and crawled over to Alan. He started moaning and hissing again. I got close enough that I tossed a bit on him. He turned over and swatted at it, just freaking out like an old fierce beast. It was pretty cute. He started to chill and rub around in it, making hilarious fucking moaning sounds. Flipped his little freak show switch. I watched him there for a while, then walked over to the washroom and started to run the bath. I came back and laid on the floor next to him and just watched him trip the fuck out. He looked really chill. He seemed at peace, just rubbing all over and moaning. I asked him, "How does it feel?" He just kept purring and moaning, and I just laughed at him. I focused back on the tub water filling, and I started to cry again, watching him purr and moan and rub the shit out of his bed. "Dummy, what part of stop breathing biscuits don't you understand?" Okay, fine. I took my clothes off and rubbed some of the catnip on my chest. He came over and rubbed all over me. I laughed and cried as he tickled me and cut up my skin. I rubbed him back. I picked him up, and we danced around the basement, purring with him as he dug his claws into my arms. And I said, "Let's go to oblivion." I grabbed the rest of the catnip and made our way to the tub. He was tripping hard, like a rag doll in my arms. I dipped us into the tub and he didn't even flinch. I laid back, propped my knees up, and laid him out on my thighs so he was facing me, his back feet cutting into my abs as I rubbed his belly. He looked back at me, but through me, his eyes wider and his tongue longer than I had ever seen. I said, "Alan, you need to get a hold of yourself. You're losing control." I laughed and cried and dumped the rest of the catnip on his head. He completely ragdolled on my thighs. I kept massaging his belly and his arms and his feet. The only thing he was moving at that point was his tongue. Licking and licking. I thought his tongue would come right out of his mouth. I said, "Alan, I'm going to miss you. Take me with you." And I cried and cried. I grabbed him by the throat and I started to squeeze. I said, "Alan, take me with you. Take me with you." His forepaws latched onto my arm and I squeezed tighter. The tub was turning pink. I couldn't look him in the eyes anymore, so I closed mine and I cried and I cried. And I said, "Alan, take me with you. Take me with you. Take me with you. If you don't, I'm gonna miss you. I'm gonna miss you." And I could feel that he was gone. He pulled me out of the tub and held me in his arms. And everything else was dark. I said, "I'll love you forever, Alan." And I watched the tub turn redder and redder as he pulled us higher and higher. The tub grew smaller and smaller and dimmer and dimmer, and everything got darker and darker and darker, and Rita came in and screamed, and I fell down and went splash.